When you talk about elections, if things would have been overturned back then to Donald Trump, we would have lost our country forever based on what I know now.
But there are many people now, and I'm one of them, who are very unnerved about where our country is.
The last 3 months, MyPillow's been attacked worse than ever. And you ask yourself, well, is it because Mike Lindell, the media says he loves Donald Trump and he wants to overturn the 2020 election? No, that ship sailed a long time ago. It's because I want to secure our election platforms and go to paper ballots, hand counted. They fear a fair election more than anything else, almost as much as they fear Donald Trump.
Do you regret having met Donald Trump? Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Kathy Barnett podcast. Today on the podcast, I had the wonderful opportunity of interviewing Mike Lindell. Do I need to say any more? I think we all know who Mike Lindell is, the founder, owner of MyPillow. What I have seen, what I'm sure you have seen as well, there is a very definitive strategy from fill in the blank, right? I do not believe we're fighting Democrat versus Republicans, red shirts versus blue shirts, black versus white. It is, however, there is a segment in our population who have a very definitive plan, and that is to weaponize the laws, to weaponize the rules of engagement, to utterly destroy who they have decided is their enemy. And here you will hear the story of Mike Lindell and the weaponization that has what appears to be very clear weaponization in many regards to destroy his business. We don't just see it with him. We see it with January 6ers. We see it with Donald Trump. We see it with anyone who decides to stick their head up and to go against whatever the narrative may be, whether that person is in the right or in the wrong. I am not here to make that judgment in this particular podcast. One thing I did walk away with after listening to Mike is that my peace of mind is a choice. I get to choose. We don't always get to decide the storm that we find ourselves in. The wind shifts and all eyes are on you. And there's a lot of smoke and heat coming your way. You just never know that you may think you're an American, you're in America, the First Amendment applies, and I'm just going to say what I think. And then all of a sudden you're on the Titanic. What do you do? Mike Lindell, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on, Kathy.
Absolutely. Now, I was thinking, how do I begin this? Generally, people begin interviews like this from a chronological order. Tell me about your earliest memory, but I'm going to do it in reverse a little bit because I have a very pressing question that I think a lot of people are thinking, especially life is hard, life is real and challenging. And I think you can provide a lot of insight. And as I look on the outside, looking into your life, obviously, from 2020 election on, you have perhaps sacrificed as much as anyone I know. From the outside looking in, it appears to me that you have sacrificed a tremendous amount from the perspective of your reputation, maybe in many regards. You've sacrificed wealth. You've sacrificed peace of mind. Perhaps peace of mind is probably more expensive than some of the others that I've mentioned already. And with all of that, here's my question. Knowing what you know today, would you do anything different?
Not one thing. If even though I'm in, my pillow has been attacked, it's decimated. We've got every day I wake up, I have, it's an 18-hour fight. But I normally, I wouldn't change one thing because I know what we have to do to save our country, and I will never. I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unknow what I know. And anybody I felt that had all the information and everything that I have, I would hope that they would do the same thing, because we're going to have nothing anyway. And that's just material things. And so I wouldn't change anything. I don't have any regrets. Do I wish that things could happen sooner? And I said at one point, if you Google the word patience, you don't see my picture, okay? Yeah.
No.
Now, but I've had to learn that. I've had to learn that we're on God's timing, not my timing. And this is, as we move forward, a month goes by, then a year goes by, then more. I can look back and say, wow, that stuff had to happen just the way it did. And if things would have been, when you talk about elections, if things would have been overturned back then to, let's say, to Donald Trump, we would have lost our country forever based on what I know now. So all these different things. And then you have the big thing going on right now is you have this bucket, call it the people getting saved, the revival bucket for Jesus Christ. You have people pouring into that from all sides because things are looking so bad out there. People are feeling hopeless. They don't turn to God when things are going great physically here on when we're here on earth. So I wouldn't change a thing.
When I think about the shoulda, coulda, woulda games that we sometimes play with ourselves, I mean, in my own life, whenever I try to play the shoulda, coulda, woulda game, it leads to misery because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't change anything, right?
Right.
But you can learn, right? You can learn. So from that perspective, if you would not change a thing, is there anything that you've learned along the way?
In MyPillow, in the summer of 2011, I told my friends and family, I just did home shows and fairs. No box stores would let me in. It's kind of like now. And I told my friends and family, let's do an infomercial. It's going to be the biggest infomercial in history. I had this dream. And we went to film this in August of 2011. And the guy the night before, this real producer came in. I had a dream of a live audience, and it would just be me talking about pillow and stuff. And the real producer texts the other guy and from Hollywood, and he said, we were doing our reads. And he goes, this is the worst guy I've ever seen. He'll never make it on TV. Well, so anyway, we did this commercial. I was scared to death when we did it with the audience. And it aired October 7th, 2011. I had 10 employees. It aired in the middle of the night. I had no money left. All I had was this infomercial and like I say, about 10 employees. 40 days later, I had 500 employees. I was the number one infomercial in the world in December of 2011. Over the next 6 months, I took in $100 million. I mean, it was like surreal. But when the dust cleared in May of that year, and I didn't use the bank, so I had all these vendors and stuff that owed, and I owed $6 million, and I'm going, God, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And I was just praying for, could I have a redo? What, everything. I put so much trust in other people and stuff. Well, I'm going to make that part short, and I'm going to say, what I did from 2012 then, over the next 2 years, we pulled everything in-house. Everything I pulled in-house, and I learned from 2012. Wow, what if I tracked every commercial like it was my own commercial? What if I brought this in-house and did it the way I think it should have been done? I learned so much from 2012 to be able to have MyPillow then recover from that and sell 80 million MyPillows and be this huge company that it became. Now, if 2012 had not happened, MyPillow would not be here, period. You had to have that happen. Now I'm going to use my analogy. If the election of 2020 had not happened, we would have lost everything. From 2020 on, the last almost 3 years now, for me, it's like living inside this big spy movie. I've learned so much. We as a nation have learned so much. We as people have learned so much. We now know we learned so much about politics, but we've also learned so much where the corruption is, how bad this is, what the government can do when it turns on its people, what bad decisions can do and to hurt us all. So What I'm saying is, in order for us, I really believe the 2020 election will go down as the most important election in history. When we get to this great place we're going to get to, we're going to look back and say everything had to happen, even the bad, because we're learning from it. We're learning from it.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike, if you don't mind, because I'm gonna go back to the MyPillow story because I find that to be very interesting as well, especially as I'm starting this new endeavor with the podcast and all of that from a business perspective. But let me just kind of lean in on what you're saying now. You're saying had Donald Trump won the 2020 election, then we would have lost our country forever. There are many people. But there are many people now who are very unnerved, and I'm one of them, who are very unnerved about where our country is. It seems as if I used to say to people, we are about to lose our country. But in fact, in 3 years, we have actually lost many aspects of our nation. And only God knows if we will ever get those things back, the things we're looking at. I mean, prior to 2020, we weren't talking about little girls being encouraged to have double mastectomies or have their uteruses removed from their bodies, or little boys being chemically castrated. We weren't looking at the flooding of our southern border. Inflation was at 1.8% at the time. I mean, we weren't walking into World War III. So there are many people who say that we are losing our country and things have never been so bad. But you're saying had Donald Trump won, then we will lose. I'm saying there are many people who believe we're already losing our country. So let me ask you. So let me ask you this then, because I do often say, and I cringe when I think about it right before I say it every time. What more has to happen to the American people before we wake up, right? Like, I don't know what the magic number of horrible things that have happened. I've already mentioned the open borders. I've already mentioned food prices are doubled because of inflation. I've already mentioned the gas price. I've already mentioned World War III. But, we had shutdowns of businesses and industries and schools. And I'm thinking, I remember I live here outside of Philadelphia, and we had the highest number of senior citizens' death in nursing homes because my Democrat-controlled governor and others intentionally put COVID-19 positive patients inside of nursing homes, knowing what was going to happen. And so I say all of that to say, I don't know what more the American people need to go through before they wake up and say, aha. So although things are getting bad and you believe, what I'm gathering is that, the worse it gets, then people will wake up, because I feel like it's been worse for a very long time.
If you go back to December of 2019, people were shown what politics could, what good decisions could do to your physical lives here, your possessions. It was the highest consumer confidence in history. Everybody had all these physical things. No matter if you started in the streets, your life physically had somewhat improved. But people weren't reaching out to God then. They took this for granted. People say to me all the time, they go, Mike, when you spoke at the White House and you said God's given us grace for such a time as this doesn't feel like grace, Mike. I see it. I see this in the streets all the time. I'm going to show both examples here, and then you will understand. A year ago, I was out in California, a very depressed town. It was all these liberal Democrats that were there, these kids that were 25 to 35 years old. They just flooded me, coming up to me for pictures and stuff, but they were all depressed. They're going, what is the gas with $7.80 a gallon? All these horrible things that are going on. And I said, and they asked me, they wanted to learn. And I said, that's a manifestation of what our government's doing to this country. So I was educating them. Okay. Now, a week later, I went down to the hurricanes. I was giving out my pillows and blankets to a Hispanic community and stuff in Florida. That was a year ago in September. And there was like a river in this trailer court with a dike on both sides, but the river was actually a dirt road, and all their worldly possessions were on both sides from their trailers, piled up, destroyed forever. We were praying with them, and all of them that are coming out, they had one thing. They said to me, they would come up and go, can we save the American dream? They had come from places where they had nothing physical. They know they had lost all their physical things, but they wanted to save our country, save the American dream. They knew they could get them back if we would get, the economy, if we get back or save our country. My point being is this, is the people have woke up. They have been waking up. As things keep going along here, you have two buckets. The bucket of the revival, the biggest revival in history for Jesus Christ. They're pouring into that. And once you're there, you don't leave. Then you have another bucket of politics and stuff, the common sense bucket. So as they trying to destroy Donald Trump, or they try and, tell you, they're not even bothering to tell you that the government, that we're doing good things, because everybody knows they're doing horrific things to destroy our country. This country is not a 50-50 country. You have this fringe over here, the transvestite, picking God out of our schools, and all this garbage going on. But the people are pouring into, it's unifying us as a people into this bucket of common sense. And people are getting their eyes opened up more and more every day. Here's the biggest problem we face. Is your conservative media, your voice of your Fox Newses, your Newsmax of the world, those media outlets that people trusted, they don't talk about, all it is doomsday. Every day, doomsday, but the people need to hear the hope. And the hope is right now, we're fixing these election platforms. I'm at the most hopeful I've ever been, ever.
Well, you're absolutely correct in the fact that, mainstream media doesn't talk about it. I believe you're absolutely correct that this is not a 50% divide in this nation. It's more like 80-20, where 80 of us are, 80 of us believe in the things that you and I are talking about. Yep. And then but you do have a very real 20% who hate this country. You're talking about the greater good. But what do you do, Mike, from an individual perspective, when lights, camera, action are all off and it's just you sitting in your room looking at where your life has taken you? I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, just from a human perspective, what do you do?
Well, it's prayer. I'll tell you that. It's prayer. And Kathy, I hear this all the time from people. They go, Mike, I prayed and this didn't happen and this didn't happen and things are getting worse and it's so hopeless and all I do is watch Fox News and there's nothing promising there at all, right? And but I said, you know what? Those are reactionary prayers and they might not be God's will. Right now, I've been under even a worse attack than back then. The last 3 months, MyPillow's been attacked worse than ever. And you ask yourself, well, is it because Mike Lindell, the media says he loves Donald Trump and he wants to overturn the 2020 election? No, that ship sailed a long time ago. It's because I want to secure our election platforms and go to paper ballots, hand counted. They fear a fair election more than anything else, almost as much as they fear Donald Trump.
Well, how is your business doing? Because I know that there was, very early on, I don't know about this latest attack, but I know very early on after 2020, there was a concerted effort to destroy your business, to bankrupt you personally. How are you doing? How is MyPillow doing?
Back then we lost 95% of our retail business, which was over 100 and some million a year. And those that have had to go to diversify, do other things like do shipping for my other platform, my store, which is all entrepreneurs and USA products. But just this last summer, since June, it's like they're an all-out push. I had American Express come to MyPillow, cancel our credit line basically, and we've never been late ever. And then when they do these, the media did these reports that MyPillow's going under. They had an auction. We auctioned off some of our retail equipment we haven't used for 2 years. So now you had vendors and banks cancel us. And then you had merchant servers cancel us. Creditors, we had all our inventory. We don't use a bank. So basically the vendors that give us credit, like if we have parts to make my pillows and stuff, our foam companies, what they did is they go, okay, we're worried about you now. So instead of having 90-day credit, now we want 15-day credit. That's like calling all your loans due. It's been just horrific. To navigate these last 3 months has been absolutely one of the hardest of my life, because I have that going on. Plus I have the plan to secure our elections, which have worked on over a year. I direct 300,000 people in all 50 states through the Cause of America. So we were directing and running and finance all these lawsuits that are being proactive lawsuits, plus all the ones I'm sued for billions of dollars over here. And a couple months ago, I made a decision at MyPillow. Hey, we can't afford $2 million a month in lawyer bills. This is an employee-owned company. $2 million a month to defend some lawsuit where machine company sued MyPillow, these employees. And I said, we can't afford $2 million a month. So now we got lawyers for about 1/10 of that. But the media is all over that going, Mike Lindell is broke. Yeah, I'm broke. I spent all my money, $60 million of my own money I spent on these elections platforms over the last 3 years, and it's gone. So I can't finance that anymore myself, but I've got to, and with MyPillow, I had to get cheaper attorneys or lower priced attorneys because of the lawsuits there. So it's been very hard.
But the lawsuits are very real. These people are trying to, the penalties that are the potential penalties that are in front of you are very real. How do you think this is going to end up for you?
Well, the lawsuits, everybody, that was just a big deflection, and to try and run, all these people out of money or to silence them. Obviously, to silence me, it did not work. Okay, it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's $1 billion, $1 trillion, or $8 billion, which it is. That doesn't matter. That's a distraction. I'm over here trying to secure our elections and save the country. So with these lawsuits, all they're trying to do is push it out past 2024. They're just trying. It's like you wouldn't believe it. Like you put in for a dismissal, or I put in one of my cases. I put in for a dismissal, the most frivolous case you ever seen. And the judge said, well, I'm not going to rule on the dismissal. I'm going to wait until go ahead and do discovery and all this other stuff, which is very expensive. Just tell me if it's a dismissal or not. So I called that judge out. This is no judges. This is where we're at with lawfare. Am I worried about that? Absolutely not. I'm 100%. That's 100%. Now, could they say, yes, you owe that? Then you'd have to go through appeal and all that? Of course, because nowadays there's no guarantee. Kathy, I'm going to tell you, the world we're in now is totally different.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're thinking as you look at your own life, right? I know that you have this, this bigger platform, and I can hear in your voice and what you're saying that you believe that this is your service to the country, that, that God has, to whom much is given, much more is required. He's given you wealth. He's given you a platform that others did not have, and you used it to do what you believe to be was right. And unfortunately, in the culture in which we're living in, there's an element in our nation who does not care. And if they can destroy you, they will destroy you. And it's not just you. We're watching it happening with Donald Trump. We're watching it happening with January 6ers. We're watching it happen to just regular, normal, average Americans, right? And so you're right, is that if I hear you correctly, when you look at what could potentially happen with you with these lawsuits, are you saying your hope is that after 2024, they'll just go away?
My biggest thing now, I get up every morning, I try and keep my pillow steered right and upright, that ship that they're just trying to sink, because that would sink my voice, or they want to sink my voice.
But what's going to happen with MyPillow?
We ain't going anywhere. We're here to stay. God's protecting MyPillow. We're here to stay. And then we have, but over here, I figure we have 12 months. The plan I have to secure our elections is well on its way. Anyone can look at that at lindellplan.com, lindellplan.com. Everybody's moving forward with that. And I believe if we can get our country get rid of this administration, get in there. I think that this country will be saved. I think it doesn't take much. Look how fast Donald Trump solved ISIS in 1 week. 1 week. There's different things because when look how fast evil's destroyed it. Well, with God, all things are possible, and God can restore it faster than you could ever imagine to a place that's better and safer and more secure. It's going to be better. Just like I told you with 2012 of MyPillow, if I hadn't had 2012, it wouldn't have got to this beautiful place where, thousands of employees and millions of USA products sold.
Hey, everyone. Just want to interrupt the podcast for a moment to tell you about a special offer. Mike Lindell has done it again. As usual, he's out there in the world finding solutions to problems we all have. My towels solved a problem that we all had with towels. You go into the store, they look so pretty, they look so soft, they feel soft, they look lotiony, and then you get them home and they don't actually dry your body. Well, that's why Mike Lindell made my towels. They actually work. They're soft and they absorb. And now MyPillow is excited to announce 2 brand new lines of my towels. Now, what makes them the best towels ever is that they're now made with a 100% long staple Sherpa cotton. This is a comb ring spun cotton that makes my towels even softer and more absorbent than ever. And now you get a 6-piece set for an amazing introductory price of $29.98. Now, you know that's not happening. I'm sure you're out there trying to purchase new towels now. You have friends and family coming over for the holidays, and you know that you're not going to get a 6-piece towel set of this quality for $29.98, but you can go to mypillow.com, use promo code Kathy with a K, or call 800-988-3934. That's 800-988-3934 and get your 6-piece introductory set for $29.98. You can get a designer premium line for just $20 more. Either way, you save $50. Everyone actually gets dried off and you look like a champ. So they actually work. Just go to mypillow.com and use promo code Kathy with a K. This offer won't last long, so please go order now. When you first came out, we all knew you as the MyPillow guy, right? I mean, that marketing plan was the best. And I remember Donald Trump very early on saying that you had the best marketing mind that he had ever seen. And I remember that very clearly. And then the next thing I saw you on the lawn of the White House right after COVID, early part of 2020, Donald Trump brought a lot of different business owners, corporate America, onto the lawn of the White House. And he, praise the Lord, right? He knew enough not to pivot to the federal government to try to figure out a path through COVID. But instead, Donald Trump and Donald Trump fashion turned to brilliant business minds. And you were one of those people there. Was that your first time ever meeting Donald Trump?
No, I had met him in a private meeting. Remember, I was an ex-crack addict. I had never voted. And I didn't know a filibuster from a filibuster. I didn't know a Democrat from a Republican. I didn't. I didn't know a liberal from a conservative. Well, in the summer of 2016, Donald Trump reached out to me for a private meeting on August 15, 2016. Now, I met him, and I walked in there, and it was so surreal. And it was just him and I. And he asked me, they said, whatever you're doing, you're not going to meet him alone. And don't tell him you were a crack addict or whatever. And I walked in that room, and the first thing he asked me, he says, Mike, I always see you. It was just so comfortable talking to him. But he goes, I see you on TV all the time with your cross. He goes, are you a Christian? I said, yes, Mr. Trump. And this is a divine appointment. And we started talking, and the reason he had called me, there was no other agenda than he wanted to ask me about my manufacturing here in the U.S. He said, you make your pillows here and stuff. How is that working out? I want to bring the manufacturing back to our country. And then I told him, I said, And I said, I was an ex-crack addict. And I kind of looked at him like that. And he goes, and I said, and I'm going to have this network called the Lindell Recovery Network that's going to be free for people in addiction. And he said, and I'm going to stop the drugs pouring in, from the border. I'm going to stop pouring in. So we had this great conversation and for about a half hour, and I left there. And that was all we talked about. He just was so, wanted to hear from this businessman from Minnesota that made stuff here. But I went and talked to all his employees and stuff, and they all said good things. They said, he's a great businessman. He's a great boss. He told me a personal story.
Well, people seem to have loved him prior to him coming down that elevator. I mean, people seem to have genuinely loved him.
I got back to Minnesota, though, right after that meeting, and I did a press release. I was the media's darling. I could say I'm hiring 100 employees, but then all of a sudden I did their press release, and they hated me at that point. They're going, they just attacked me here. I'm going, what did I do? I didn't even say what we talked about. And then I knew there was something else out there that was evil that I had never seen before.
And that leads me to the question I was really thinking, because, for better or for worse, and I certainly do not believe Donald Trump deserves all this heat and smoke he's currently receiving. I voted for him twice. The first chapter in my book, I dedicated it to review what candidate Trump promised he would do versus what President Trump actually did. Promises made, promises kept. And so I certainly don't believe that he deserves all of the animosity that he is getting right now. And yet, he seems to be a little radioactive. If you're too close to him, it seems like you're going to be drawn into court or an indictment is coming down right along beside him. So this leads me to my question. I was thinking, do you regret having met Donald Trump?
No, absolutely not. I was just with him yesterday. No, absolutely not. To be able to meet a person that gives me, under my faith in God, which I base everything I pray about, everything I do, I believe all of us, and especially him here for such a time as this, he's the one that the elections that he had, 16 and then 2020, that revealed all of this uniparty corruption. If people knew what I know, this is what they're afraid of. This is what they're afraid of. And I feel, God put me in this position to be a voice, everybody's voice out there. I thought it was just going to be to go around evangelize and get people off crack cocaine and stuff, but it was a much bigger plan God had. And part of that was becoming friends with Donald Trump. Now, do I call him and tell him everything I'm doing? Never. We don't. It's kind of funny like that. People think that we, talk about these things. I have my own plan to secure the elections. Do I think he did the greatest job as a president in my lifetime and any time? Yes. I know what it manifests to in December of 19. I know his decisions of common sense, problem solution. It's such a common sense decision. What it would manifest to help all people. And he, I think he's so misunderstood there you say to people, well, people are afraid now. No, they're not. His polls keep going up. Any other time in history, if you had somebody even attacking me when they attacked me. Oh, Mike Lindell was a drug user. He was a crack addict, and they're attacking.
You were very open about that, but you were very open about that. That was a part of your life. That was a part of your life. That's what.
Right.
But that's how I knew you. You were the MyPillow guy. You were in recovery from an addiction. You talked about your young daughter at the time a lot. You talked about Jesus all the time, had your cross on, and you were a happy warrior. When I first met you, when you and I met, what was it? Did you say 2020 or 2021? January 2021?
It was either December or January then that we met. Yeah.
And you were a happy warrior then. And knowing, again, on the outside looking in, the little that I am, privy to watching and looking at. And then to hear you talk today, you are still a very happy warrior. And I know that has to be a faith that is greater than your own. And I think it's such a pivotal message because I think we're in the habit, especially those of us who are walking behind the political curtain. It's a habit of ours to look to politicians as though they are our political messiahs, and they're not. And there has to be something bigger because, as I describe, I'm meeting a lot of people who are going through a lot, and life is tough, and life is hard, and life is, I'm watching people who are going through their own sense of mental illness or anxiety and depression. And I think to myself, if as just a secular individual just walking around and I'm just living looking for a man to save me or to resolve these issues I'm going through, I would be depressed as well. I would be riddled with anxiety right along with them. And I explain to people all the time, I can do what I do and walking all across the nation, meeting all kinds of people and still be somewhat a happy warrior. Probably not as happy as you are, but a happy warrior nonetheless. It is because of Jesus. It is because it is an intentional effort on a moment by moment basis of focusing my eyes off the issues and onto his word, which I believe to be true. And it sounds like that's your rock as well. And you're definitely going through the storm, Mike.
Yeah. I go by Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. And always acknowledge him, and he will guide your paths. I was going down some pretty bad paths. I left one thing out there: lean not on your own understandings, and always acknowledge him, and he will guide your path. Now, people out there. Courage is contagious. I mean, Kathy, I watched yourself. God brought me to so many divine appointments back then and up to now, all these different divine appointments. And I can look back and I'll say, wow, if I didn't meet this person or if this didn't happen. That's why I always encourage even Donald Trump. I'll say to him, God, this is on God's timing, because he always says, he goes, Mike, they're destroying our country. I don't even know if this is repairable, what they're doing to our country and what's happening. And I said, and like I said to you, Kathy, early, it might have to get even worse before it gets better. But you got to look at the positives coming out of that. The people, when you say that, but think how many people were brainwashed over here. And that we're, with that 20% we talk about, people all want, I believe, if 2020 didn't happen and we would have all went to bed at 3 a.m. and it wouldn't have broke the algorithms and Biden would have won, we would have all walked around and said, well, we took God out of our schools. I guess everybody, this younger generation, they've been brainwashed. They like transgender. They want to do abortion, all these things. But that's not true. That's not true. A nation had turned its back on God, but God's given us grace for such a time as this, and we're all part of that. This is the best time in history to be alive. I mean, be happy. I mean, everybody just embrace it, but do your part. Do your part, everybody. Everybody needs to do their part, even if that's praying every day for, to get through this and to get more and more people saved for eternity than ever before in history. It's a beautiful thing.
I love it. Mike, thank you so much. Let me just ask you one last question. What is in store for Mike Lindell in the future?
If we get through this, I want these election platforms secure. Once they're secure, and that has nothing to do with who wins or loses, I want these, I will not stop until we have secure elections. Once that's done, am I going to go right off into the sunset? No, I'm going to be, I love our country. I love the Lord. I love my family, and I'll probably keep doing what I'm doing. For me, it's a blessing to be able to give and to help people. I want to help. I still have my LindellRecoverynetwork.org. It's free for anybody addiction that feels hopeless out there. Go there and get help. I'll probably just keep on, evangelizing. By the way, if a person can't evangelize now and witness to people, you're in the wrong business, because people are looking for hope. And would I ever get into politics? I was asked that the other day. Before this all started, I was going to run for governor of Minnesota. Would I ever go into politics? And I said, I guess I'm open to anything that God leads me to. And If that's what it would take, I would do that. If that's what he wants me to do, whatever it is. But I know that I don't. I just embrace life. I love everything that we're a part of this grace that God's given us. Think if we were sitting here, Kathy, and we didn't have all these pieces that are out there and all these tools to be able to get our country back and to save it, to save our, the American dream and to get people to Jesus. If we didn't have that, we'd be a lost country. And that's what I think this stuff that happened back then in 2020 has opened people's eyes and it's engaged. And I think, and you said earlier, what would it take for people to get up and go, how much more is it going to take? Well, each person's a little different. And as things get worse, I know this many more people come over and this many more people. So I think, who knows? That's up to God.
God knows. I always tell people I have no idea how this is going to end, but however, whatever the end may be, it will not find me sitting on the couch watching Twitter or scrolling on Facebook. I am going to be in the battle. I'm going to find a way by the grace of God to be in the battle. And Mike, I appreciate you. I appreciate your kindness and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. And if they want to go check out anything with what I'm doing now, go to franksocial.com or Frank Social. It's on the App Store. It's like a Facebook. All my information's there. All my plan is there. It's all I communicate is there. And then Lindell TV also. I have a show every day. So, Kathy, what a great honor to come on your show. You were great. I love your new show. So you're one of the people that I met along the way where you can't. Great friend and a great fighter for our country. God bless you.
I think about you often. I pray for you and I pray for our country. And I truly appreciate you, Mike. And I was wondering if you were going to have any regrets or if you would do it over again. If you could do it over again, would you do it over again? And I'm just very grateful for your, just speaking direct. Yeah. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I wouldn't change a thing. We're where we get to right now because we're getting to the finish line, which is going to be amazing.
Blessings, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.